Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Mirror Ball. I'm your host, Melina, and I run Mixing It Up with Melina over on Instagram and Facebook. Today, we're going down a trip of memory lane to season 17 of Dancing with the Stars. We are entering a new era of Dancing with the Stars. There are a lot of changes. There are new pros. There is a stacked team of contestants this year. It's a good time. So with that being said, get comfy, get cozy wherever you might be. Grab your drink of choice, whether it might be a nice refreshing glass of water. It is getting hot around here, although I saw snow. Was that Ohio yesterday? You know, I'm having this literally, I wanted to open this while I was getting all my notes in order because I desperately need this, but cheers, y'all. Okay, so we are in the fall of 2023, fall 2013. We have 12 couples this season. Let's start with the changes of like the development of the show. Excuse me. We go from, this is the first season where we no longer have the 2 nights. So it used to be, up until now, generally Mondays was the dance, Tuesdays was elimination night. And I miss that availability of having a bit to vote, not just everything immediate. But I also like looking back, and now as an older person who's got a lot more on my plate, I don't know that I could do 2 nights. I would make it work for sure, but there has to be a way. So anyways, this is where also the voting system changes. So you vote, and the previous week's scores with the voting then go into the following week is who goes home. So essentially you practice for a week not knowing if you're staying or going the following week, but you get eliminated at the end of the night, but they already know who's going home. It seemed a bit messy, and so I do understand in certain parts of it why it has shifted the way that it has, but this particular season was just kind of a lot of change. In addition to the changing of the 1 night to 2 and the voting, another voting factor was that, I talked about this in the live last night, the technical execution. So they want to see, they're judging you, and your scores is based off of how you executed, essentially danced, the technicality of the dance. And so that brought in a new layer for the choreographers to consider, the judges to watch for, and then the contestants to keep in mind. And this today, if you think about today, how today's judging is still a very large part of how they score, but I also think that leaves a lot of personal opinion from the judges in how they score, which at the end of the day, it's their decision on what they're scoring anyways, but I feel like more of the personal opinion comes into play. That everyone does things differently. We also got rid of the skybox this season, and I was not a fan of that. So instead of like going up the stairs, so it used to be, the old skybox is my favorite. So you'd go up the stairs, and it was a neat little like sitting area. And there was a lot more of like organic conversations happening. And today's skybox, you go up the stairs and everyone stands around you. Only so many are in the view. And Julia does a good job of post-dance interview. Hot take, it doesn't come across authentic a lot of the times with Julianne. It feels very, this is what you should say, and why does it feel scripted when we don't know how their dance just went? Does that make sense? Anywho, The skybox is removed this season. So instead, there's a sitting area near the judges. And sorry, I'm like second guessing myself. Let me get my notes specifically. Near the judges' table, opposite side of the ballroom, there was a room where there was makeup and rehearsal, and that is where Brooke would chat with people. And then Tom was still on the floor being the main host. I was not a fan of it. Not a fan. And many of you, according to the blogs I was reading and things like that, were not a fan of it either. Okay, so for this season, we have 12 couples. We have 3 new pros enter the ballroom. One of them went straight to being a pro. She did not have to put any time into the troupe. Tyne, I think I'm saying that right, Stecklin. She was, well, we're going to get to her in a second, but she was already very, I guess, popular in dance movies. And so she went straight to the pro. She only lasted 1 season, and that is such a disservice to the show. She was fantastic, and I enjoy watching. Then we have, ironically, Emma and Sasha become pros at the same time. Both of them had put in time with the troupe, and they were upgraded to pros for this season. This season, we also had our first African-American woman to win the competition. Glee's very own Amber Riley won with Derek, and this marked Derek's 5th mirror ball win, obviously setting records and crushing them. So let's talk about each couple just a little bit. Okay, so let's learn a little bit about each couple. So first to go home this season was NFL legend Keyshawn Johnson. He was partnered with Sharna. This was Sharna's 2nd season, and unfortunately they went home first. He just struggled, and it was hard. Generally, you hear me say oftentimes on this show that the football players adapt and do very well within this show. However, not all of them, and Keyshawn is an example of that. Next up to go home was scientist and PBS lover Bill Nye the Science Guy, partnered with Tyne. He was a huge fan favorite right off the rip, but he was definitely not the best dancer. If he had gone farther, he was for sure going to be like my Andy Richter. Like, people loved him, but he got a knee injury in week 2, and essentially that was it. He went home the next week. Then we had, did I miss someone? Hang on, I feel like I missed someone. No? Okay. We had Valerie Harper, the famous actress, partnered with Tristan. Tristan goes home again early. The thing about Valerie that was extremely inspiring and heartwarming was that she was battling, during her time on the show, brain cancer. And so to see the tenacity of someone pushing through while they're dealing with the diagnoses and the medical plan and all of that was just very inspiring. It was unfortunate that they got to go home so early, but yes. So then next to go, coming in 9th place this season, was Christina Milian and Mark Ballas, and this to me was a shock value. And ironically, the night that they go home, she earned the first 10 of the season, which wasn't till week 5, by the way. Like, 10s were rare back in the day. But yeah, they got a 10 and then went home. And in interviews I found of them, and then people blogging about it, there felt to be a lot of blame on the new voting format. I did not do enough research to feel like I could confirm or deny that, but it was a repetitive factor I found in my research. Then next to go home was Snooki, partnered with Sasha, and these two are still friends to this day. I think that's pretty cool. You know, I love that. She definitely lasted longer than many expected. And I think for her, she was okay. But she was a bundle of personality, which is what we all know Snooki to be like. And so I think that is what, and then her fan base was huge. I mean, this is 2013, like Jersey Shore was still thriving. Then next to go up was Brant Daughtry with PETA. I guess many of you might know him as the Pretty Little Liars actor. I know him as Hallmark. But they did really well. They really, him and PETA really utilized their on-screen chemistry. And they were very good together. But there was a double elimination in week 8, and him and Elizabeth Berkley, Jesse from Saved by the Bell, who is partnered with Val, went home. Elizabeth did really well. I honestly thought that she would have gone a little bit farther, but yeah, unfortunately they did not. But it did surprise a lot of people. This season does feel very, like it was very competitive. You weren't really sure who was going to go home when. Outside, I feel like the top 2 was pretty evident that they were going to go far. But everyone else was kind of like a run for their money. So then next up, we have Leah Remini and Tony Dovolani, famous actress, also former Scientologist, who that is what she does today, is really pushed to help essentially rescue people from the her words cult. I'm not going to get into all of it, but anywho, they came in 5th, and she did, I do remember being surprised by her. And it was kind of, I don't know, delightful comes to mind. So the next up, we have our top 4. And 2 of the 4 for sure saw them going the distance. The other 2, had you told me at the beginning of the season that they would be in the top 4, I do not think I would have picked them to be that. But they ended up being pretty good. Coming in 4th was newcomer to the ballroom, Emma Slater, partnered with comedian Bill Engvall. Many of us know him as one part of the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. And they were a lot of fun. And he has spoken very highly of Emma since then. And he has spoken of his time on the show. He was for sure crowned the Andy Richter Award, and he and Andy had very similar situations. And it's ironic that Emma is the one. So there must be something about Emma that pairs well with men of that nature. The dance scores were always on the lower end, but the spunk of him, the tenacity of him, the desire to keep going forward, the enjoyment he was getting from the process, it was very clear when, as fans, as us watching it, that he enjoyed it. So they came in 4th. And then 3rd up, definitely didn't see it coming, was Jack Osbourne, famous Ozzy Osbourne's son, the Osbourne family reality show. He came in 3rd, and he ended up being really good. He was partnered with Cheryl, and part of Jack's surprise a little bit was that just the year prior to him being on the show, he had announced to the world that he had multiple sclerosis. And so he was battling that during his time on the show, and it left for a lot of emotion and vulnerability as him. And I don't know that at that time many of us had ever seen that part or side of him. So it was a very big it was him, you know, there was a lot of surprise with him in good ways. Does that make sense? Okay, so our top 2 this season are Glee's Amber Riley, and many of us know High School Musical Corbin Bleu. Amber was partnered with Derek. Corbin was partnered with Karina. These 2 delivered every single week. There was no question about it. You knew you were going to get a good dance. One of my, I would say it's one of my top 2 favorite dances of this series is Corbin and Karina's freestyle to Michael Jackson. It just absolutely incredible. Loved it, every second of it. And then many of you love Corbin and Karina's Argentine tango, and many would venture to say that's one of the best Argentine tangos. Now, if I'm being completely honest, that dance didn't stick out to me specifically. I'm not saying it wasn't good. It just wasn't one that like came to mind, like their freestyle comes to my mind. And then Amber and Derek had several big dances that I did not. And because someone did message me asking if I was going to touch on it, I said I would. So this is the season that the ballroom as pros are introduced to Sasha and Emma. And so just to give a quick little summary of the Sasha and Emma of it all, Sasha and Emma were married at one point. They actually met on the show around 2009 when they first started becoming involved with the show as troupe dancers. However, they did not start dating until 2011. And so at that point, they both were troupe dancers, dancing together on the show, dating. They did date for about 3 years, according to my research. And then they essentially broke up. They continued to work together on the show, but they did take about a year apart. Then in 2015, they got back together, and then he proposed to her on the show in 2016. They married just a year and a half later in 2018, and then they separated in 2022. Now, Sasha and Emma together are probably one of the most talked about topics in my inbox. Many of you want to talk about him. Many of you want to talk about her. Many of you want to talk about all of that. I would say almost all of you, a good chunk of you, all of us found it weird that he proposed to her on the show. However, now that we have social media and it is used the way that it's used today, I am not surprised in the slightest that he did such a public engagement. And I would venture to say that we can expect something like that with Janelle probably in the next 6 months. So they got married, a good chunk of Dancing with the Stars was there, and then they separated very quietly in 2022. It did take them 2 years to get officially divorced. So then there's the whole, a lot of people blame Alan for breaking them apart, calling him a homewrecker. I don't think any of that is the case at all. And it seems now there's a lot of you who feel or have read and seen a lot of hate on Emma now that she's dating Alan and all. I don't know. I don't do that kind of drama. I'm not into. I don't read about it. I don't care about it. And so I don't even know what's true or not true. And that feels like there's just a lot of strong opinions involved in it. But for me, I personally have never stumbled on anything of either of them talking down to each other. I do have my personal thoughts on Sasha's feelings towards Emma, Sasha being, in my mind, maybe a certain kind of way with her, not in like anything yucky way. I just think at the end of the day, those were two personalities that were not really intended to ever like grow together, if that makes sense. Perfect example. Emma has like a more lower key. She doesn't share nearly as much of her life as Sasha does. Sasha shares quite a bit. And to each their own, right? Not my cup of tea. I'm more of an Emma girl. But sometimes that can be a very big just not meant to be together thing. I don't know. So that is the rip of that. She is now dating Alan. Yes, the Alan from the show. And he is now dating Janelle. What is she? Pretty Little Liars? I also know her from Hallmark. So she was on the show. Was it Pretty Little Liars? I should have looked that up before I started talking. Anywho, that is that. All right, so with that being said, this wraps up season 17 of Dancing with the Stars Beyond the Mirror Ball. I'm your host, Melina. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, feel free to leave any comments below, and be sure to follow me over on Instagram and Facebook at Mixing It Up with Melina. Also, shoot me a message if you want to talk about anything Dancing with the Stars related. Have a great week, and I'll see y'all next week.